Hello, everyone, and welcome once again. I am JT, aka the Master, and this is For No Reason Fantasy Football. You see it behind me. We got a great show in store for you today. We're going to be talking about uh, tight ends and running backs. I won't be available next Sunday, so we're doing a double ranking. That's right, we're doing a double ranking. And for all you that play fantasy football, pay attention. Pay close attention to this. Because this is extremely important. Extremely important. Because I'm going to break this up for the running backs, just for the running backs. Because tight ends, I mean, you know who the tight ends are going to be. Come on. I'm gonna show it to you, what I think, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we'll go from there. We got a time here. It may not be the whole hour show. It just may be a short show, just to give you an idea of the rankings. Now, I'm going to go and start with the tight ends first, okay? With the tight ends first. And I'm going to go, since I'm solo today, which is fine. It's not the first or last time I've been solo. And let me put my glasses on so I can see properly. How about that? And talk about the tight ends, okay? I'm going to flash this up here. Let me see if I can get this up here for you. Banners here. Flash this up here. And we'll do this way. We'll do it this way. Show across the screen. Save this one. And then we show it. Okay. At number 12, people, got Tyler Higbee. You know what? I'm going to do this. Rather than do that, I'm going to take this off and show you the whole thing. And there we go. All right. At number 12, we have Tyler Higbee, people. Tyler Higbee. And, you know, we do have some guys that maybe could take the place of a Tyler Higbee. But at number 12, I mean, like I said, and I always say this is subjective. Okay, everybody has their own opinion about where these guys fit 1 through 12 or 1 through whatever. But you can see the overall, what I think of the top 12 tight ends. And let's talk about Tyler Higbee. Now, he was busy in 2022, but not wildly productive. He finished 4th among tight ends in targets with 108 and 5th in receptions with 72, but with only 620 receiving yards, okay, and 3 touchdowns. He only finished the tight end 9 in fantasy scoring in his first touchdown of the year didn't come until week 15. Okay. Now he's become a decent fantasy option at tight end. Okay. And though he has never lived up to the promise of his supposedly, I wouldn't say spectacular, but I would say a late season run in 2019 when he piled up 43 receptions, 522 yards, and 2 touchdowns over the last 5 games of the year. That's when the Rams ramped up their offense and had a high-powered offense, okay? And they're going to be throwing the football because they're projected to be one of the worst teams in football, meaning that they're going to be trailing quite a bit. And Matthew Stafford's probably going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. And I'm projecting. Let me put it this way: I'm projecting Tyler Higbee to have about 60 receptions, 500 to 600 yards, and close to 4 touchdowns. It's nothing to write home about. Let me put it that way. Nothing to write home about. Okay? And remember, I'm doing tight ends, and I'm also doing running backs today. So, with that being said, let's go to number 11, Dalton Schultz, who is a very good tight end and should be very productive in the Houston offense, because I wouldn't say they have decent wide receivers, a rookie, maybe Tank Dell and Nico Collins and company. But the best friend, and I've always said this, people, if you listen to me, the best friend, listen to me, the best friend of a tight end, a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, is a tight end. Short throws, right in the middle of the field, high percentage passes. And Dalton Schultz can do that for C.J. Stroud because he hasn't looked that good. And he's got to gain some confidence in his pass catchers. And how do you gain confidence? How does a young quarterback gain confidence? Short throws, middle of the field, high percentage throws. And that has to do with Dalton Schultz. Absolutely, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz at number 11. He signed a 1-year deal with Houston, where he should have ample target opportunity. Like I said, but we paired with rookie C.J. Stroud. Schultz was tight end 3. Tight end 3, people, in fantasy scoring in 2021. Caught 78 passes for 808 yards and 8 touchdowns. But his production tapered off in 2022. Okay. He finished with 57 receptions, 577 yards, and there's a lot of fives in here. 57 receptions, 577 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Okay, and he was in the early part of the season. He dealt with a knee injury. Quite naturally, that cost him a couple of games. He isn't really athletic, and he's averaged just 6.5 yards per catch. Now, we're saying that the 2021 numbers, which was 78 passes kept caught, and 808 yards and 8 touchdowns, aren't going, more than likely won't be repeated. But he is a very good, as he's proven, he's a very good option in the passing game in Houston, and an option for the rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud. Okay? So I'm projecting Dalton Schultz, 56 catches, okay, 574 yards, okay, and about 4 touchdowns. Okay? That's not bad, but it's not a world beater. It's not a world beater, but it's not bad. But you're talking about a really bad offense with a rookie quarterback that is more likely going to be trailing from behind and looking for an outlet in Dalton Schultz. And he can be that viable outlet. He can be that viable outlet. Okay? Let's move on to my man. I think he's going to exceed this, but I'm going to project him to I'm talking about David Njoku. And I think people are underestimating this offense in Cleveland, which is fine. I mean, you know, they didn't show much last year, and they're going on recent history of Deshaun Watson playing the last 6 games of the season, which he was up and down, up and down, up and down, and wasn't impressive. And okay, how many quarterbacks can take a year and a half off, a season and a half off, and come back and be a world beater? I don't think too many would be. They'd be rusty, off, and that's what Deshaun Watson was. Rusty, off, but he liked David Njoku. Throwing to him, David Njoku. David Njoku, first 5 seasons in Cleveland were a mixed bag. Now, he had Baker Mayfield, and he's a very talented tight end, and he had a strong 22 campaign with 58 catches, 628 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 14 games. And he hauled in 72 and a half of his catches. 72 and a half of his catches. And hold on a minute, I'm just checking something here. He hauled in 72 and a half of his targets and averaged 44.9 yards per game. And although he's been in the league since 2017, Njoku will only be entering his age 27 season. So he's squarely in the prime of his career with his massive wingspan, okay, and above average speed. Njoku might still be able to take his game up to another notch. Hopefully, in my opinion, they got a very good pass catchers in Cleveland with a quarterback that can get them the ball. Okay, a lot of people have questions about that quarterback. He hadn't shown too well in preseason games. Okay. He hasn't played that much in preseason games, to tell you the truth. And in criticism, and he lashed back, which I don't understand. He lashed back of a writer because they criticized him or told the truth about how he was in practice against another team. Okay. During practice, Philadelphia Eagles, they were in the Super Bowl last year. Okay. Didn't show well. Okay. Didn't show well. Practice. Allen Iverson type of thing. Practice. We're talking about practice. Okay. So, but let me get back to David Njoku. He's an athletic tight end that can get open, and he's a safe throw in the middle of the field, and he can stretch the field too. And I'm not calling him Travis Kelce, but he can do the things Kelce can do. Maybe not to the level, but he can do Kelce can. He can stretch the field because of his speed and athleticism. He can do that. A lot of people have hesitation about David Njoku. If you're not able to get the top, you see him down there on the bottom. If you're not able to get the top 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 top ones, David Njoku at number 10 is a very good option. Okay, he's a very, very good option. My projection: David Njoku, 52 receptions, 570 yards, and about 4 touchdowns. Okay, that's decent. That's not world beater tight end. It's not Travis Kelce, who's averaged double digit and 1,000 yards. It's not Travis Kelce. How many tight ends are like Travis Kelce? Not too many. Okay, not too many. How about one? Travis Kelce. There ain't nobody like Travis Kelce. All right, average 1,000 yards over the last 4 seasons at least, and double-digit touchdowns from a tight end. Come on, how many tight ends are like that? You can count them on one finger. One finger, Travis Kelce. All right, let's move on to the number 9, and you see him here, Mr. Pat Freiermuth, one of my favorite tight ends. He's one of my favorite tight ends. Big boy. He's a big boy, can block and absolutely play the tight end position at a high level. He's one of my favorite tight ends. I drafted Pat Freiermuth in every one of my fantasy football teams last season. He was my number 1 tight end. Why? What did I just say earlier? the best friend of a rookie quarterback is the tight end. And what did the Pittsburgh Steelers have last season? A rookie quarterback in Kenny Pickett. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. And Kenny Pickett's in his second year. He's going to be looking for one of his favorite targets in Pat Freiermuth. Trust me when I say that. Trust me when I say that's why Pat Freiermuth is within the top 10. He's in ninth. He's ninth. Now, he only scored 2 touchdowns in 2022, but he had 98 targets and finished with 63 catches for 732 yards. Now, check this out. This is his second year. And if you listen to me over the years, if you listen to my podcast over the years, I said rookie tight ends don't do well in their first year. It takes them at least the first year to get maybe 2. Maybe 2. Most of the time, it takes at least 1 year before a rookie tight end gets acclimated to what he has to do. Now, he gives you a solid fantasy floor, and he's a key component of the Pittsburgh passing game. Okay, you got Deontay Johnson, you got George Pickens. Okay, and people are hyping up that duo of George Pickens and Kenny Pickett. I'm not a big fan of Kenny Pickett. You got to show me. I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. You got to show me. Kenny Pickett has taken a step. He may take a step, but I'm the jury for me is still out on Kenny Pickett. But safe throws, middle of the field for a young quarterback is a tight end. And Pat Freiermuth, I think, is going to flourish and get those projections close to him. All right. Now, this is one of the most athletic and tight ends in this list at number 8. Got a lot of mouths to feed in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2022, and he thrived in his new environment, catching 73 passes for 766 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also had a 7-catch, 93-yard, 1 touchdown in the Jaguars playoff game versus the Chargers. Back with the Jags after being franchise tagged, Evan Ingram will likely be drafted at the mid-range or low-end tight end 1 this summer. That might be a slight overpay now that the Jaguars have added Calvin Ridley. I said earlier, got a lot of mouths to feed. Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and have ample passing catching weaponry on the roster to make target competition fierce. You got 4 legit pass catchers, either wide receivers or tight end. I'm not discounting the running backs, Tank Bisbee and Travis Etienne. But this is going to be another step, if I do believe, this season for Trevor Lawrence in this offense. First year with head coach. Oh, my God. I can't believe I forgot his name. Anyway, with the new head coach, Doug Peterson, I'm sorry. And second year with an added weapon in Calvin Ridley. They're going to be doing a lot of throwing. And Sunshine, as my esteemed colleague, Vic Gardner calls him. I expect Evan Ingram to get targeted early and often. And my projection of this is almost 63 catches, 650-something yards, and close to 4 touchdowns. Okay? That's what I'm seeing at Evan Ingram. And Wouldn't surprise me if he exceeded that. At number 7, man, oh man, I was going back and forth here. Do I want to put this guy in? Because I don't know. I know he's got a lot of athleticism. He was the first tight end in 50 seasons to get 1,000 receiving yards as a rookie, and had a really disappointing second year with 28 catches for 350-something yards and 2 touchdowns. And he missed the last 6 games of the season with a torn MCL. Now, he's only 22, is very, very talented, and I'm figuring him to be a top fantasy tight end for many years to come. He's got a second-year quarterback, a young quarterback. It's mainly a running team, a conservative team. Now I'll premise it like that. It's a conservative team. And running the football and throwing to a athletic tight end fits right into Arthur Smith's offense. Remember him in Tennessee? He was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee. Remember the tight ends in Tennessee were highly targeted. They ran the football extensively, and they targeted the tight end quite a bit. Conservative offense, easy throws, high percentage throws for a quarterback. And like I said, Arthur Smith loves to run the football. And he's in charge of the Falcons offense. And the quarterback is Desmond Ridder. So you don't want to put the quarterback in harm's way in throwing the football. Pitts will be a high-risk, high-reward fantasy option for 2023, but at least he'll be cheaper in this year's draft than he was in 2022 because of what he did, 1,000 yards receiving, everybody was high on him. Not me. I wasn't high on Kyle Pitts, but they were high on him because he did for the first 50 seasons. He had 1,000 yards, and tight ends 50 seasons before he had a tight end with 1,000 yards. Come on, he was an outlier. Let me put it that way, and people expect him to take another step forward. Just like you never know. I'm always said this. I'll always premise this. I got these guys here listed 1 through 12 based on injury, not based on injury, but outside of injury. Injury, then you can throw it all out. I'm sorry to say that, but you can throw it all out. Kelsey can be number 1, but if he gets hurt, he won't be the number 1 tight end. There's going to be somebody on this team that's going to miss games. On this list that's going to miss games. And it's going to affect how their rating right now. It's going to affect their rating. I tell you that right now. Based on health, this is how I see these guys. All right, let's and I'll give you a projection on Pitts. Okay. How about 60 receptions, almost 800 yards, and around 4 touchdowns? How about that? I can't give him any more. Like I said, this is a conservative offense. I know they're going to be throwing to the tight end. How much Desmond Ridder is going to affect the production of Kyle Pitts, I'm not Nostradamus. I can give an educated guess. 4 touchdowns, almost 800 yards. Okay, that's the best I can do. Let's move on to Mr. Dallas Goedert, one of my favorite tight ends, with Jalen Hurts thrown to him, who likes throwing to the tight end. Over the last 2 years, Goedert has averaged 56.7 yards per game and 10.6 yards per target. Wow, 10.6 yards per target. He finished 5th. I have him at 6. He finished 5th in fantasy points per game in last season. You know, he missed 5 late season games with a shoulder injury, and he missed 5 games, and he finished 5th. Now, like I said, he's athletic. He's a playmaking tight end who's averaged 13.8 yards per catch over the last 2 years. He has his target upside is the arrows pointing up, or it's at a certain level. However, since the Eagles were the fourth run heaviest team in the league since last season, and since Goddard has to share targets with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, Goddard hasn't scored more than 5 touchdowns in any of his 5 NFL seasons. But so, what's my projection? It ain't going to be 5 touchdowns. It's going to be 64 catches, a little over 738 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns. You notice this trend here, right? You notice this trend. I'm averaging these last few tight ends, 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. How about George Kittle at number 5? Now, the problem with Kittle is sometimes he can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy. Kittle, he never has finished every game this season. Since he's been in the league since 2017, 15 games, 2018, 16 games, 2019, 14 games, 2020, 8 games, 2021, 14 games, and 2022, 15 games. Okay. And last season, Kittle had 60 receptions, 86 targets, 765 yards, and okay. Now he remains one of the hardest tight ends to tackle. Okay. One of the hardest tight ends to tackle. He's coming off a strange season in which he scored a career high 11 touchdowns, but averaged 51 receiving yards per game. Now, that's the fewest since the rookie year in 2017. Now, he's definitely an efficient pass catcher. Well, he got 11 touchdowns with a career average of 9.6 yards per target. The question is whether Kittle will be targeted often enough to suit people who pick them on and put them on a fantasy team. The 49ers are in a shaky position in the quarterback position. And Kittle will have to share targets with CMC, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. My projection for Mr. George Kittle, 60 catches, about 780 yards, and maybe around 6 touchdowns. Okay? He's got to stay healthy, though. I mean, most of the time he'll miss a couple of games, but a couple of games can cost him that much more production. Got to stay healthy. No 2 ways about it. All right, let's go to number 4. And I think this guy is going to, I mean, you're on a team that's got a quarterback that likes throwing to the tight end, that has a offensive coordinator / head coach that likes throwing to the tight end. Just think about this when Brian Daboll was with the Buffalo Bills and how much that tight end was targeted. And they have a very athletic, and you have a much better tight end now than you did when you were in Buffalo in Darren Waller. After putting together back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2019 and 2020, Darren Waller has missed 14 games due to injury over the last 2 years. In 2021, he had a knee injury that he missed 5 late season games. In 2022, a hamstring injury wiped out nearly half of his season. Now with the Giants, Waller could see a lot of targets. That's what I'm talking about for a team that lacks size at the wide receiver position. They drafted Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee to add to the wide receiver position. But Waller has been reasonably productive when healthy the last 2 seasons, but he now has to be considered Oh, yeah, of course, because he's been injured, a mild health risk. And the big tight end will turn 31 in September. Okay, he turns 31 in September, but he's still athletic. And I'm thinking he's going to be with Daniel Jones. I'm thinking he's going to be targeted early and often. Let me put it that way. Early and often. And I expect Darren Waller to have a relatively big season. And when I'm talking about relatively big season, 65 catches, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. Okay. That's decent. That's decent for a tight end. Decent for a tight end. It's not Kelsey, who's the number one option. And you got that from Mark Andrews, but Andrews is no longer the number one option. And there's another person, another tight end, which we're talking about right now at number 3, who has put himself in the equation as a top 3 tight end. And that is what a lot of people were expecting when TJ Hockenson at number 3 was drafted by the Detroit Lions. And surprisingly, a mid-season trade to the Vikings brought TJ Hockenson into a huge fantasy relevance in 2022. He averaged 6.1 targets and had 26 catches when he was with the Lions. After the trade, Hockenson averaged 8.6 targets in Minnesota and had 60 catches in 10 games. He also had 10 catches for 129 yards in a Vikings playoff loss to the Giants. He's only 26, people. He's only 26. He's in his prime of his career and quite naturally attracting a lot of people in fantasy drafts at the tight end position now that he's with a team that loves to pass the ball. I said this last season. I said it this season. I'm saying it this season. You got to get a piece of whether TJ Hockenson, Jordan Addison, Kirk Cousins, and definitely Justin Jefferson, piece of the Minnesota offense. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. That's what they do. And the fact is, they were in a lot of one-score games. And they had to throw the football to either win the game or come close. But to catch up, let me put it that way. TJ Hockenson is going to have a huge season, in my opinion. Over 80 catches, over 800 yards, and about 6 touchdowns. I know that pales in comparison to the first 2 that I'm going to name in the tight end position, but man, oh man, TJ Hockenson you can't get Kelsey, you can't get Andrews. Hello? TJ Hockenson. Okay. And let's move it to the last 2. Some people, I can't, well, you can, because the number 1 guy is far and above the best. After catching 107 passes for 1,361 yards and 9 touchdowns and leading all tight ends in fantasy scoring in 2021, Mark Andrews was off to a hot start in 2022 before the production fell off in October. And Andrews had 39 catches, 455 yards, and 5 touchdowns over his first 6 games. But then he fell off and was only 34 catches and 392 yards and 0 touchdowns over his last 9 games because he was dealing with knee and shoulder injuries, along with the absence of his absence of his quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Now, he's got a lot of upside. He's only 27 years old. He's worth a tight end target if you miss out on Travis Kelce. And you know Travis Kelce is probably going to go in the. I already said I had Travis Kelce in the first round, so more than likely you're going to miss out on Travis Kelce unless you have a first round pick, high first round pick. I think within the within 7 picks, is Travis Kelce. Okay, and let me go to Travis Kelce. Now, king of the tight ends. Some people have Derrick Henry as the king of the running backs. Travis Kelce has finished tight end 1 in PPR fantasy scoring in 6 of the last 7 seasons. Now, he only set behind Mark Anderson in 2021. The gap between Kelce and all the other tight ends was huge in 2022. Kelce averaged 19.2. Now, this is a tight end. This is a tight end. But you've heard me say this before. This is a wide receiver in the tight end's body. Let me put it that way. 19.2 fantasy points per game. The next closest tight end was TJ Hockenson. That's why I was talking about that. Averaged 13.6 fantasy points. Kelce has strung together 7. I thought it was less, but it's 7. 7 people, 7,000-yard seasons, and he's averaged 8.4 touchdowns per year over that span. That's insane. That's insane. He's going to be 34 this year. In 2022, he had a career high 110 catches for 1,338 yards. That's wide receiver. That's wide receiver stats. And 12 touchdowns. Age, like I said, is the only real concern for Kelce, who turns 34 in October. Okay. Like I said, but he's been indestructible for most of his career. He missed the game in 2020 due to COVID, but Kelce hasn't missed a game due to injury over the last 9 years. Kelce is worth fantasy first round pick in fantasy draft, and you can make a strong case that he should be a top 5 pick. Let me tell you, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce. Come on, man. 1,300 yards. 12 touchdowns. That's Chase and Jefferson company. And I think I had him at number 5 in my last mock draft. Come on. What do I project? What do you project for Travis Kelce? Come on. Really? How about 105 catches, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns? And I'm talking about a tight end. Oh, my God. I'm talking about a tight end. That's unheard of. Travis Kelce is in the Hall of Fame without a doubt. When his playing days are over, 5 years from now, he's going to be, and I got to hear this speech from around in the next few years, and Travis Kelce is inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I got to hear this speech. Got to hear this speech. Got to hear it. All right, people. That's what I think of the tight ends. The next move we got here is the running backs. The running backs. And let me just go and show you what I think of the running back. Here we go. Najee Harris at number 12. Mixon at number 11. Ramondre Stevenson, number 10. I'm not going to change that, even though Zeke showed up. Not going to change that. Jacobs at number 9. I'm not going to show that, even though Jacobs hasn't been at training camp. This is how I see it. I'm not going to change it because Jonathan Taylor is at 8. I expect Jonathan Taylor at one point to play. He has to play. Let me put it that way, to take away that 1 year that they franchise. He's got to play. Otherwise, his year will not count, and he'd get pushed back a year. He's got to play. Derrick Henry at number 7. Nick Chubb at number 6. I know some people have him higher. Tony Pollard at number 5. Bijan Robinson at number 4. What? A rookie at 4? Yeah. Barkley at number 3. I'm sorry, I don't have the number there. And Eckler at number 2 and CMC at number 1. Now, the numbers can be juggled 1 to 4. Let me put it that way. They can be juggled to 1 to 4. Some people have certain running backs at 1, 2, or 3, or 4. But they can be juggled. This is how I see him right now. But I wouldn't be surprised that some people take Chubb at number 1. He's the best running back with the most yards, even though he didn't catch many passes last season. But I expect because of this going to be passing offense in Cleveland, Chubb can easily move up to be number 1. Eckler caught a lot of passes. I think over 107. I think 107 passes last season. Is that going to change? I said he was going to regress. He could easily supplant CMC at number 1. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson. Okay, let's go through these from 12 to 1. All right? Let's go through these from 12 to 1 and talk about it. And I'll give you my estimation. My estimate. Let me put it that way. Oh, how I see the running back position. All right. Let's go here. Okay. At number 12, I have Najee Harris. He should have an improvement, even though that offensive line has to show some improvement in order for Najee Harris to take a step forward again. He took a step backward in the season, last season, falling to running back 14 in points per game after a top 5 fantasy season as a rookie. However, his usage was very strong across the board. Harris still operated as a workhorse, somewhat a workhorse, ranking 6th in opportunity share at 70%, and 8th in total touches through the first 17 weeks of the season. He also improved drastically after the team's bye week, operating as a running back 7 in points per game over the last 9 weeks of the season. Now, he had a foot injury early part of the season, and that's the excuse I can give him for not being as productive as he was in the last half of the season. After tallying 0 games with 20 carries through the first 8 weeks, that's what I'm talking about. Harris totaled 5 games with 20-plus carries during the second half of the season. Should the Steelers undergo an offensive surge in Kenny Pickett's second season with a drastically improved offensive line, and that's what I talked about earlier, Harris could easily back in to the top-tier fantasy running back. Okay? I have him at number 12. The offensive line, and including Kenny Pickett, has to show me something in order for Najee Harris to move up in the running back ranks. That's in my opinion. And I'll have to say this again. Another running back in Joe Mixon. In weeks 1 through 8, he struggled, averaging 3.3 yards per carry as running back 19 in points per game. No running back scored fewer fantasy points versus expected because he just couldn't seem to find the end zone. But as the newer pieces of the offensive line started to get together, Mixon's production took off in the form of positive touchdown regression. He finished the season, including the postseason, as Pro Football Focus second highest graded running back, headlined by an elite 5 touchdown game versus the Panthers. Now, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. That 5 touchdown performance, even notable, boosted his ranking last season. Okay? In his 8 healthy games from week 9 to the conference championship, he averaged 16.7 fantasy points per game. Now, that's equivalent to a running back 5 on the season. Mixon finished 6th in touches per game, which was 19.5, and 2nd in carries inside the 10-yard line, which was 28 from weeks 1 to 17, but only scored 5 touchdowns. The career high receiving usage, which he had 60 catches for 441 yards and 70 targets, paved the way for Mixon's running back 8 finish. And I have him at 11 right now. Now it should be noted that the team did involve Samaje Perine, who's not there now. He's in Denver. More down the stretch after he filled in during Mixon's injury, week 11 and week 13. Perine outsnapped Mixon in 2 of the Bengals' 3 playoff games and routinely ran more routes, but Mixon still averaged nearly 4 catches per game. Now, I don't think his receiving role on early downs is going to change, and even if he loses snaps to another running back on 3rd down, and the Chris Evans, who's the other running back, figures to take a larger role on 3rd down, take the place of what Samaje Perine was doing. I project that Mixon, 228 carries, 950 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 368 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. That's how I see Mixon. That's why I have him at number 11. All right, let's move on to the next guy, Ramondre Stevenson. In week 1 through 8, let me put it this way. Hold on. Now, they lost Damian Harris, but got Ezekiel Elliott in the equation, who signed a 1-year, $6 million contract. Now, he's got an incentive base, okay, and he's going to be a type of back to take the full load off of Ramondre Stevenson, give him a breather, and probably see some goal line usage. A typical New England committee backfield, in my opinion. The red zone opportunities are the only legit downside to Elliott signing with the Patriots from the Stevensons. But in every other capacity, Stevenson should remain the team's featured back because Elliott is way past his prime. His prime, I'm sorry. So Ramondre Stevenson role in 2023 will be more of what we saw from week 5 to week 16 when he was a running back 13 in points per game as the Patriots lead back. And if you recall that even when Damian Harris, who was there last season, played alongside Stevenson, the big running back still finished 3rd in route participation, which is 58%, and targets, 82 among running backs. Remember that Stevenson had a strong campaign to a running back 10 finish. It was not fueled totally by touchdowns. Steven was one of the worst running backs converting from inside the 10-yard line, and he scored just 3 times despite 19 goal line carries. That's why they got Zeke. I think Zeke's going to be the goal line. So if Stevenson experiences positive touchdown regression, it's just gravy on top of his fantasy projection. It's not like Elliott, Bogart, and goal line usage in Dallas stopped Tony Pollard from being a fantasy football stud, but the average draft position in Stevenson that Zeke signing will definitely cause a drop for Stevenson. I got him at number 10 because I still think he's going to be a viable back. You got Damian Harris replaced with Zeke Elliott. I don't think it's going to change. And I think that this is going to benefit Ramondre Stevenson. Now, this next one, I know. He was arguably the most valuable fantasy asset during the fantasy football regular season based on his finish as a running back 2 just behind Austin Eckler in relation to a super cheap draft day ADP. The market was convinced that Jacobs would become part of a dreaded running back by committee under new head coach Josh McDaniels. I thought the same thing, but that was hardly the case. He was a full-blown bell cow for the Raiders, leading the NFL in touches through week 17 in 17 weeks. He's only 24 years old. Now he's 25, and will have to play on the franchise tag after leading the NFL with 1,653 yards. That's why he's holding out. He don't want to play on a franchise tag. He wants a contract. With a similar cast of characters returning as depth behind him, it's hard to envision the Raiders not heavily relying on him again as a true featured back. But there's a lot of risk involved considering Jacobs' holdout into the regular season. He hasn't reported to training camp, and only 2 running backs finished as RB1s the following year after leading the NFL in touches since 2013. I'm sorry. Okay, Justin Jacobs. I have him I got him ranked. Okay, right now I got him ranked. Assuming that he's going to play. Okay, he hasn't come in yet, but you never know what's going to happen. NFL players are fickle. You never, especially running backs, you never know what's going to happen. Now, Jonathan Taylor, some people had him at number 1, 2. I didn't have him at number 1. I like CMC. Okay. I took CMC, never took Jonathan Taylor in any of my drafts. And he got hurt. So that was a bust. And he underperformed as the running back 30 in 11 games. Played averaging 12.6 fantasy points as the running back 18 when healthy. JT's usage was that of a top 8 running back, 8th in expected points per game, 4th in touches per game, 20, but a lack of touchdowns decimated his fantasy stock in the Colts' awful offense. After scoring a combined 33 touchdowns through his first 2 seasons, Taylor scored just 4 rushing touchdowns in 2022. From efficiency standpoint, I'd expect a bounce-back effort from Taylor in 2023. He will be healthier in 2023, and a rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson's mobility under center should increase his efficiency. When Taylor first returned from injury, 10 to 13 weeks in 2022, he ranked as a running back 3, and he should experience some positive touchdown regression entering in the final year of his rookie deal. However, it should be noted that with Richardson under center, Taylor won't cannibalize all the goal line carries. Okay, people, I have Jonathan Taylor. He'll get healthy sooner or later. He'll get healthy. I don't know. Let me put it this way. I know these 8th and 9th running backs have issues. Well, both of them contract. And I have them up here, and one hasn't reported to training camp, that meaning Jacobs. The other one is dealing with an ankle injury or whatever, some type of injury that's keeping him off the practice field. But I got to put these guys here, okay? As we get closer and closer, much closer to draft. Okay, for most people in the draft, like I said, I wouldn't draft early. This is early to me. This is the 19th of August. Next week, we'll see what next week holds. Or the following week. I do most of my drafts on Labor Day weekend. That's at the last weekend before the regular season starts. I suggest that's what you do. You wait till the last possible minute to do the drafts. if all possible, if you do draft now and you do draft next week, come on. Players like Taylor and Jacobs can be key to your fantasy football roster. And you got to see where they may fall. Okay? Right now, Jonathan Taylor is probably drafted in most leagues in the third round. Jacobs is a hard. It's at your discretion. I can't. If it was me, I would never draft Jacobs because unless he reports to camp. I know I have him at number 9. I know that's it's a conflict, but his ability, I have to put him at 9. His availability is a different story. But I have to put Jonathan Taylor. He's got to show up. He's got to play. Okay? Almost 280 carries, over 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, 32 receptions. I'm just on give or take, and a little over 200 yards catching the football, and maybe 1 receiving touchdown. Jonathan Taylor's got to play, unless for whatever reason there's an injury that he doesn't play all 17 games. But he's got to play. As you see here, I have Henry, Chubb, Pollard, Bijan Robinson. Let me talk about Bijan Robinson for a minute here. Let me talk about Bijan. Texas running back. Bijan was a consensus number 1 running back across all pre-draft publications and was selected 8th overall in 2023 in the NFL draft. At a very run-heavy offense in the Atlanta Falcons. Robinson finished as Pro Football Focus second highest graded rusher in FBS, tallying 18 rushing touchdowns and 1,575 rushing yards to a 37% dominated rating in his final year as a Texas Longhorn. He forced 104 missed tackles, which is a 40% broken tackle rate, which is crazy, which has shown to be a super predictive of success rushing at the NFL level. Compared to last year's running back class, only Breece Hall posted a higher dominated rating, which is 40%. Factor in that Robinson also finished 3rd among running backs in yards per catch, which is 16 yards per catch, 16.5 yards per catch, with 0 drops. And there's no question as to why he's locked in as the number 1 rookie draft and top 3 ranked running back in season-long formats. At 5'11", this is my wheelhouse, people. My wheelhouse. I talked about this ad nauseum about running backs. 5'10" to 6'1", maybe 6'2", at least 205 pounds, 200 pounds around there, up to 220, 225. Bijan Robinson is 5'11", legit 5'11", and a legit 215 pounds. Come on, man. And he ran a 4.46, if I'm not mistaken. Robinson has the size and all the tools to be successful 3-down back in Arthur Smith's offense. They last season, Atlanta's offense and Tyler Algier, I got to put this point out there before we close this show out, finished as Pro Football Focus highly is graded rookie running back and 6th in rushes as a former 5th-round pick. Algier also averaged 18 carries and 96 rushing yards per game from week 13 to the end of the season. If Robinson inherits that workload, he is easily projected 300-plus carries and 1,500 rushing yards in an offense that ranked 1st in early down run rate and a 13% in run rate above expectation. I don't know what to tell you. Okay? So you see my list down there. You see it. 1 CMC. 2 is Eckler. Barkley is 3. Robinson is 4. Pollard 5, Chubb 6, Henry 7, Taylor 8, Jacobs 9, Stevenson 10, Mixon 11, 12, Harris. Won't be here next week. Good luck in your fantasy drafts. Good luck in your fantasy drafts. Hopes I've helped with all the position rankings, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and ending with the running backs. Do your research, people. Know what your game plan is and be able to adjust in your fantasy drafts. With that being said, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the beginning of your drafts and draft well. See ya.